Good evening, snipers. I hope you all are having an amazing weekend. Let me quickly start off with our weekend call with our weekly seasonality. Then we'll talk about our earnings calendar, economic calendar, and then top three trade areas I'm looking at this week. And then also talk about all the charts that I've shared and give you some overview about what's happening in the market. So without further ado, let me quickly jump into our Discord where we start off with our weekly seasonality where our weekly seasonality, I go about this every week. This is not a prediction of what's going to happen in the future. There is zero ways to predict the market, right? So, but what I like to do is go to the past, collect some statistics as to what has happened in the past in a week similar to what we are seeing this year. So, in the past for quad witching on March, we are seeing that Dow starts off very strong compared to Nasdaq and S&P. Although any number over 60, under 40 is something that I take a little bit more seriously. Dow starts off very strong. S&P, Nasdaq, 52% of the time were green, which is pretty good. But 52% is a coin flip, right? So we'll have to see how S&P and Nasdaq start and open, and after that we have. A Nasdaq getting very strong for next 3 days. Like you see, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday, we are looking at 71, 67, and 76% of the time. Nasdaq being green, and followed by S&P. Obviously, Nasdaq being a heavyweight also, like Nasdaq components being heavyweight also, right? Like XLK, XLC, XLY, all these mega caps that will move the market. If they are getting stronger, S&P is going to stay strong also. So Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday, Nasdaq starts to lead, and Friday, which is the quad witching, which we don't trade usually, right? Like which is totally fine. Witching, we definitely never trade. So uh, definitely on a weaker note. To end the week, but midweek is where most of the money can be made towards the upside on the market. So keep an eye out for that on the seasonality front. Next one is the earnings calendar. Let me quickly bring up my marking tool. Let's see. Nike, this is one that you want to look out for. We have shares on there for long term. We have Micron, which is another one that we have shares on for long term and is looking good. FedEx, the chart, I will go over that, but there's nothing on the flow that I can really tell you about FedEx. But for Micron, there's quite a bit of 85 puts that are sold, and 115 call spreads, I would say, sold for us. So I mean, bought against 121 puts, 121 calls, I believe. There's a spread that they have created for June July timeframe. So that's something that you want to look out for. But Micron, my price target on shares is 135. We Our average is quite down because of how many times we have been selling those CSPs. We have CSPs sold for this week as well. I know there is earnings. There's some good capital that we can get based off the call selling that we are doing, the CSPs that we are doing. If the shares get called off, totally fine. We'll just buy them when they dip. So that's mostly what I'm looking for here. Just three stocks that I'm looking for on the um, earnings calendar this week. So keep an eye out for those three. Next one is let's see. We are looking at the macro calendar. The first come here. Fed interest rate decision, which is a great, which is the FOMC, which is one of the biggest moving factor this week. So probably Monday and Tuesday will not move as much, and then Wednesday we'll see a little bit of a move with Fed presser conference, which is basically Powell coming out and talking. So this is one of the biggest event this week. So keep an eye out for that on Wednesday at 2 p.m. EST, so Eastern time. So keep an eye out for that. Other than that, is there anything that really stands out? I don't see anything much here. Like Fed is relatively not talking much this week. Obviously, the Bank of Japan interest rate decision, that is something that many people with this carry trade nonsense that are talking about, which in my opinion, I don't think. I mean, if all these people who are talking about it on Twitter already know about it, you think all the smart people who are running these central banks don't know about it and can't can't do anything about it. We'll see. I mean, but I don't think they'll raise hike their rates this time around also. But Powell's speech is going to be very, 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 very important this week. Last week also during his speech is when the market kind of pumped. So this week also I'm expecting the same for the market to move towards that 5800, 5700, and then 5800 level subsequently. So keep an eye out for that. Very, very big event this week. So that's something that I'll be looking out for. Next, coming to, let's talk about SPY QQQ and IWM, and then we'll talk about our top three trade ideas for this week. Coming to the weekly time frame, I want to emphasize this. We were talking about this quite a bit, where once this trend line breaks, we are going to head lower. Uh, but there's one thing that I really liked last week. We definitely head lower, right? Like we saw a similar pattern like this before also. Like I'll show you something here, right? I think this is where, yes. So we did head lower, and then look at what happened to the market, right? Like we broke the trend line, head lower, and then we just ravaged for like a few almost for a year, I think, right? Like for a few months, right? So something like that has happened a lot recently, and something you can also look out for here on and in 2022, where we broke down, and then this was the downtrend that we saw. So um I quite don't know where the bottom is, right? Like obviously looking at the weekly time frame, I just don't know where the bottom is. Are we going to go do this, or are we going to do this? So if you want something like this, right? Like if you want to see a pattern, something like this, and you want to see this kind of pattern, you want to see this trend line to be recaptured, which is this trend line here, right? That trend line has to be recaptured. If you are going to see something like this, you will not see this trend line recaptured, and we will keep heading lower, making those lower highs and lower lows, and the trend will keep continuing that way, right? So first things first, let's also draw something here. uh, like this is such a steep fall off. I would say this usually happens in a bull market, uh, where it's not like this. It's not quite like this, right? Like where like you have there is a trend line that gets formed, and then the trend line just keeps getting rejected until it's kind of broken here, and then retested, and then goes back higher, right? So I quite don't know if we are going to see this kind of pattern or this kind of pattern, but something like a drop like this usually happens in a bull market, and um, we'll have to see how and when this particular trend line kind of gets recaptured, and in a longer term sense, is this the pattern that we are going to see, or is this the pattern that we are going to see, is something that we will have to wait and see. Like I really don't know looking at this weekly chart at the moment. But there's one thing that I can tell you, that remember when I was telling you, when that bear gap was formed, start sizing down your bets, start lowering your trades, start being very, very cautious. I just stopped trading the the 5K account completely mid Feb, and I have not touched it ever since, right? So but this is what I like from last week. We created a bull gap. That's one. And on the weekly time frame, we created a hammer, right? Although this is a red hammer, I understand this is a red hammer, second best hammer, I would say. Um, it is, if we get a confirmation this week, if we get a confirmation of closing above this, so where do we have to close? So this level here, this level here, we have to close above this level here. That would give a confirmation for this particular hammer candle, and we can probably head back to 582-ish here on the weekly time frame, and this can happen by next week or so. And that is something that you can look out for on a higher time frame, on a larger time frame kind of positions, right? Like it's not for a day-to-day trading per se. This is a weekly chart, so that's where I'm coming from. Again, let's go back to the 65-minute chart, which we usually use for our day trading, right? So this is where we talked about sizing down our bets. This is where we found that bear gap that was open. This is where uh, I stopped trading that 5K account. This is where I was like, I'm going to be extremely cautious. I'm going to size down on my bets. Obviously, we are doing, I mean, I wouldn't, let's not, I won't generalize it. I'll just say I'm doing pretty well. Like right now, like I know a lot of people who are following also are doing pretty well on their accounts. But the market is extremely hectic, right? Like this bear gap here gave us the clue, and that is where I completely stopped trading that small account, because it's so hard to switch flip flop between accounts. Because it's when it's easy, it's like you can just get those trades very very fast, and like you make a lot of money. But when it's tough like this is when there's a lot of fear in the market, and you cannot like focus on a lot of things. You have to like get that tunnel vision, and put your head down and work on your only account, or like just don't be distracted by a lot of things. And exactly like what I was talking about here, where this bear gap being open and then not being closed has created this downtrend. Does I mean I'm not saying it is going to happen, but is this our clue? This was Thursday. So we say Fridays are the days. Fridays is when the market usually never bottoms. This bottom here was on Thursday, right? After that, we gapped up. We gapped up. Let me. Okay. Sorry about that. I think I. Okay. I probably have to go back into no strategy, no. Yeah. Okay. Anyway, so now let's see. So now let's see if this. So this bear gap here, right? Like this bear gap here is what gave us the clue, and this was when we started like sizing down and doing all that. Can this bull gap here, which happened on Friday, sustaining and closing at the highs, is giving us the clue, which can probably give us that inverted head and shoulders and go back to the highs, right? Like, are we so are we going to attack this bear gap here? So if you look at the measured move, right? Like if you look at the measured move, this is the 13-point measured move. So 13 points from the neckline, it takes us all the way to 574, which basically is the bear gap fill, is something that I'm looking at. Like once that 563 breaks, we are going to that 575 zone, and that is where we can probably. I'm not saying this is absolutely will happen kind of thing. Goes up, fills the bear gap, creates a higher low, probably will retest the 536. I'm not saying it'll exactly go to 536 563. I'm just saying it can go there, it can create a higher low, create that higher low, and then go up, fill this bear gap as well. So still this bear gap is still open. I'm saying I'm not saying we are just going to go straight up, fill this bear gap, but slow and steady, there can be a trend shift. There can be that trend shift that can happen. And once that trend shift happens, is when we can say market has bottomed, and we can probably see a little bit of a move there. Let's also see. This is also the all-time highs, right? So let's see if we can draw a trend line here. I just drew that trend line, and it's not a valid trend line. This is not a valid trend line, by the way. I'm just drawing to see if where this trend line kind of intersects, which kind of is very funny that it comes right at this the bear gap fill as well. So something that I can think about based off what can happen is if we are seeing something like that, right? Like if we are seeing something like that, inverted head and shoulders breakout, goes all the way, fills this bear gap, creates that resistance, comes back down, retests this trend line, and then goes right back up. So this is a very possible scenario that I'm thinking about. So keep an eye out for this. And um, this is a possible scenario. The upper trend line that I drew is not valid. I just joined 2 points, which is not the right way to draw a trend line. You need three or more points to really draw a trend line. But I'm just giving you a hypothesis as to what can happen here. This bear gap here, that was a bull gap here that was formed, can be an indication, just like how or what happened when this bear gap was formed. Um, this is the first time in a few weeks that we have seen a bull gap being sustained. So keep an eye out for that, and we will see how the bulls will move based on the price action tomorrow. I do think when we close off at the high like this, I think I was talking to someone on Friday, we would see a dip and rip kind of situation on Monday. That would be a bigger clue into what would happen into Powell as well, which would give us on SPX, which would give us 5,700 and above is 5,800. I also posted why these two levels are very important. I also posted why 5,500 level is very important, why there is that gamma put wall there, and why is that the bears are not able to break it down. I also posted all of that in our game plan channel, so definitely go over that as well. But can this be a clue? I do not know yet, but I am seeing that signs of bottoming in the market again. I'm not, I don't trade off it. Like, if I, even if I today say, oh, market has bottomed, I don't trade off it, right? I will definitely, like, assess my risk and reward based on the price action on a day-to-day level. So either or, this is what I'm looking at on SPY, and I will be looking out for that 563 level on SPX. I told you 5635. That's the level. That level breaks, we are going to 5670, 5700, 5755, 5800. So all these levels are possible. I think I already shared the SPX levels on our charts channel, but I'll keep an eye out for those levels as well, because we are kind of playing a lot of SPX and NDX as well. So those are something that you want to look out for. Also, on our on this one here, on our seasonality, just so that just go into the earnings economic calendar, and then click on that. You have the sheet there, and I already talked about it, and you can go about that as well. All right. So next one is QQQ. Let's start talking about QQQ. Here on QQQ, again, very solid dip. Let's see if we can draw some trend lines here. I do want to see, let's see, this was a strong reject. So let's use that. Let's use that. Oh, that's interesting. That is interesting, but is that a trend break? Is the biggest question. Let's say we draw a trend line from here. This obviously is not a valid trend line, but uh, I mean, you know, is this a trend break? Can't really say, right? Like you can probably draw some trend lines around here also and say this is a bear pennant, or a bear flag right here. Um, right? Like you can probably call this a bear flag as well when it comes out like that. But we'll see what's happening here. This is a very very interesting trend line here, which seems to be broken. I'm just drawing it right here, so seems to be broken. But we'll see if this. I mean, given how steep the fall has been, like you can probably see a dip towards this trend line tomorrow, towards 471-ish, right? That's it. Yeah. I mean, how much of a dip is that? Let me check. How much of a dip is that? Come on. Yeah, here. Um, That's about 1.8%. Oh, that's a lot. I mean, tomorrow to follow 1.8%, that's quite a bit. How much of a dip is this? That's about one. What is yeah, we'll have to see. I don't think that's a valid trend line either. Like it's just too steep um and this I mean, this does not seem like, when like let's even not talk about a trend line, right? Let's just say lower highs and lower lows. Like, this is a low, this is a high, this is a low, this is a high, this is a low. Like, we just don't have a higher high. I mean, even if this even if we draw a trend line like that, sorry, I'm a very very bad artist, but even if we draw a trend line like that, I don't think it's a trend line break. I just don't feel that it's right, because we don't have higher highs per se. Which basically, if we have a higher high, is when I would be more confident in calling that a trend line break. So we just have to look at these levels here. Nothing that I can tell you, like, okay, did we bottom off yet? But yeah, I mean, let's see. Let's draw some fibs and see. Like, I've been hearing a lot about fibs and people talking about how, yeah, see that point 61.8 being held here also on QQQ. I saw the same. I did see a lot of folks talking about this as well. Um, yeah, there you go, 61.8, exact touch and going up. So anyway, so that's something that I was looking at, and QQQ also seems to have seen that 61.8% fib as support. Once that 48, yeah, I think we need 485.50 to break here next, which is a significant level based off the chart, which was a strong resistance before, and a dead cat can take us all the way to 485, but that needs to break for me to tell you that there's a lot more buying that will happen. Any dip towards that 61.8 again is by the dip on QQQ as well, so keep an eye out for that level. And you can probably play the bounce off that level. So I don't think that's a valid trend line, so don't go off that trend line. That's mostly what I have. Next one is IWM. This is such a dirty chart. I just have to, like, get rid of my DNA as well. I have that $70,000 worth of shares on there. Now they're worth much lesser, but um, yeah, I mean, you need this upper trend line to break for IWM. That's when it'll start leading the market. Until then, it's just a dud. 188, 198 must hold. This is something that I told you last weekend as well. Um, Once 198 is broken, we go to 193 and 187, 180, 187, 188-ish here on the chart. So those are your two levels to the downside. Anything to the upside, you would need that 205 to be recaptured here on IWM. So keep an eye out for that. Next, let's go about our, let me get the Discord onto the other screen so that I have the list of charts that I've shared this morning and I can go over them as well. First one is Apple. Apple, inside day on Friday. I think there's a beautiful play from Fluid. She took a put on Apple, played it to the downside, and then she sold it at 100%. I took that trade too, which was pretty good. And oh, what a time to sell it too! Like, first signs of 100%, and she sold it. Anything to the downside here, Apple can go down to 207. Their AI features have been rumored to be, pushed out. I think a couple of quarters out, and that's the reason why we had that significant drop last week. Um, and also the reason why Fluid was also playing those Apple puts, which I was posting a couple of times in our game plan channel as well. Pretty good follow through from her, and she did a great job on that. Here, anything to the downside earlier in the week, we are going to see 207. 207 must hold, or we see under 200. 200 and 197 is the target on Apple here to the downside. If that 207 is broken, anything to the upside, you would need that 216 to be broken to the upside. Once that 216 is broken, you will see 221, 222. Above that is 230 inside day. So pretty significant move that can happen here on Apple after that compression that we are seeing. So keep an eye out for that on Apple. Next one is Amazon. Amazon, this is the trend line that I'm looking for. Relatively strong. Also, today I just can't talk. My something's wrong. Again, an inside day, and anything under 200 is by the dip here on Amazon. I would be probably selling some CSPs on Amazon. I know I bought some shares. I sold them for 2.5%. But I want to sell some CSPs. I still own some shares, but it's not as big as I had in 2022. We sold them at 215-ish. Obviously, it ran to 240, but who knew, right? Like I don't get the exact tops. I don't get the exact bottoms. I sell them when I see good profit, and then I'm using that cash to buy more Google and buy more Tesla, which is great, yeah, right? Like so now I have the cash. Now I'm deploying it, and I think Amazon, once it breaks that 200 zone, will ravage to 204, 207. I'm looking at that trend line to for a play as a swing on Amazon here. Next one is AVGO 196 breaks. It's 211. Keep an eye out for that 196 level or earlier in the week. I know Jensen is talking. That's one reason to keep an eye out for on AVGO as well. Once that 200 kind of breaks, 196 kind of breaks, 211 is your target above. 200 calls is something that you can look out for on AVGO. Next one, Baba. This is one of the top three trade ideas for the week. I would probably say top number two on the list for this week. Once this 145 level breaks, 150 call is something that you can look out for. 145 calls earlier in the week, if we are going down to 136 or under 140, is something that you can look out for on Baba. I'm so sorry, on Baba as well. So keep an eye out for that on Baba. Number two on the list of trade ideas for this week. Next one is Bitcoin. This is something that we've been talking about. This upper trend line. This upper trend line has to break. Once that upper trend line breaks, I will be going long on MSTR coin, whatever that is. Most probably MSTR is something that I'll be looking out for. This is a very clean trend line. It tried to break out here. It faked the bulls out, and then we just cleanly dropped. I am looking at this trend line. Once this upper trend line breaks, 106, 112, 120, 130. These are your levels that you can look out for on the upside. Nice consolidation breakdown, which currently is bearish. So there is nothing you can do there. You need this upper trend line to break. This upper trend line breaks, there is something that this is where you will make a lot of money on Bitcoin. So keep an eye out for this upper trend line. Draw this upper trend line. Keep alerts on this upper trend line. Do whatever you have to do, but look for that upper trend line break, and that is when you play MSTR, and it will absolutely ravage, and you can make quite a bit of money there. Next one is Costco. I don't know if I shared Costco, but yeah, Costco 900 level, being 900 level broke, went right back to 885. This whole zone is support zone, right? Like this whole zone, if you see how long, like we August to October, we consolidated here. So any dip towards that 874, 874 to 860 zone is by the dip here on Costco. I wouldn't be buying anything under that 850 zone at all. We'll wait it out for a bounce and then probably sell it off on the bounce at that point, because you'll get that dead cat bounce to get that 875-ish again under that 850 zone, and that's where you would probably sell off your Costco as well. So keep an eye out for that on Costco. Next one is Let's see what do I have. CVX. So yes, this is another one that I have as a trade idea as well. The upper trend line, you need this upper trend line breaks. Once you get that peekaboo kind of set up here, 160 call is something that you can look out for on CVX. Most of these oil stocks are looking pretty good. Obviously, Dow starts off very strong this week. If you look at the seasonality, we just talked about it. Where was that? We just talked about the seasonality as well. Dow starts off very strong and remains strong for the rest of the week, while Nasdaq starts weak but then gets strong rest of the week. So Dow strength usually signifies these companies like CVX, XOM, Microsoft, and all these also showing some strength as well. So keep an eye out for this on the chart, and once this upper trend line breaks, you can probably place some 160 calls on CVX. They are pretty deflated premiums here because the stock does not move as much as usually the tech does. So keep an eye out for that, and this upper trend line breaks, you can probably place some 160 calls there. Um, Next one is Google. An inside day as well, I believe, right? Like, let's see. Yes, an inside day here as well. Most of these big tech with an inside day, which is quite interesting. This thing, I do hold some calls onto this into this week. Now, 166 is not the level that you want to hold. You would want to need 169 tomorrow. That will set up sub to 174 to 177. So keep an eye out for this on Google. Right now, I was not quite impressed with how Google acted after this initial strength that it showed, like last week, and then sorry, last week, and then last week was a dud again. So I don't know what like we'll have to see how this price action kind of unfolds tomorrow, and we'll see and how to play Google here on the daily time frame for our weekly calls. Next one is Goldman Sachs. Again, this can, God, this is such ugly charts all over. Like, this is such a rapid fall that we cannot really say draw a trend line as well. So let me see if I can draw a bear pennant here, or a pennant at all. Like, nope, that's not a valid trend line as well. But yeah, there's nothing I can talk about here. I don't know why I opened this chart, but that's something. All right. LLY inside day again. I mean, biotech stocks have been quite strong, but faded last couple of weeks also. For LLY, we have those 1,000 calls that we have sold around here, which is pretty good. Now our average on shares is around 780s, 770s something, I think 780 or 770s. I'll have to check. But again, next bounce towards 880, we'll probably sell some calls again. So keep an eye out for that on LRCX. The must hold level here on LRCX is 780. It's currently at 812, but 780 is a must hold level here on LRCX, on LLY. So keep an eye out for that. LRCX, I have this chart out because this is a great stock for proxy play for MU, because MU is one of their biggest not suppliers, one of the biggest customers. So keep an eye out for this on LRCX. 80 call is something that you can play here on LRCX into MU's earnings. So very nice, neat consolidation that can break out here on LRCX. Let me also draw a trend line, see if there is a valid trend line here, which shows. Uh, yeah, I think you can probably call this a good valid trend line. And it flagged a little bit, retested, bounced right off. Yeah, 80 call is something that you can look out for on LRCX to play it into MU's earnings. So keep an eye out for that on LRCX. And inside day again here on Meta. Meta, can we draw some trend lines here? Nope. I'm cutting this candle off. Nope, nothing. So anyway, you need 600 is recaptured, which is pretty good. Next one is 615. Once that 615 level breaks, we'll probably play some 625 or 630 calls depending on when it breaks in the week. If it's like going to happen on Friday, we'll probably have to play some 620 calls, right? So it all depends on when that's happening. Um, any dip towards, yeah, any dip towards that, actually, yeah, 585 to 600, there's quite a bit of support. You can look at, like, look at this, dropped, made that double bottom, ran. So it's that same level again, 585. That's the level. So 585 to 575. If it drops to 575, I'll probably sell some CSPs on Meta. I'm hoping it happens, but if it does drop to 575, I'll probably sell some CSPs on Meta. So keep an eye out for that. Um, Microsoft again. What's happening with Softy? Softy, can we draw some? Oh, this is interesting. Huh. Once that 390 level breaks, we'll probably play some 400 calls on Microsoft. So keep an eye out for that upper trend line. Next one is MSTR. Lot of news coming out on MSTR. Everybody's saying, you know, who's this guy? Sailor got liquidated, whatever that is. Nope, that's not a valid trend line. That is a valid trend line. Yep. So yeah, I think that's I think that's actually breaking higher. I mean, just taking it off there, of the body. I mean, look at the number of fake outs it does. Yeah, let's see if it can break above that 300 or retest somewhere around 275. We'll look at a retest at around 275 to 270 on MSTR, or 300 break, and then we can probably play it. So keep an eye out for that. We own shares on this one. This is a great stock as well. Like, why I was buying at these levels is, I don't know if you all traded around the .com era. Look at where the top was. So that is where it tested a few times before it went right back down and then broke out with force right back down to retest that. So now I'm thinking that there's a little bit more move here on MU. That's why I have picked up those shares, retesting that resistance as support kind of thing here on MU. But once this upper trend line kind of breaks, it is going to that 125 and 136 targets here. 125, 131, 136. These are your three targets to the upside. We'll have to see how their earnings goes. Usually their earnings reaction is always shitty, but I'm pretty positive this company can do well with how AI boom is happening right now, and the need for memory as well. So keep an eye out for that on MU. Next one is Netflix, another inside day. Interesting. 925 breaks. It's going all the way to 960. So keep an eye out for that. On the upside, anything to the downside, you would need 890 break to play some 875 or 860 calls. That's mostly what I'm seeing on Netflix here. Next one is Nvidia. Yeah, there's a lot more move here to hit this trend line at 136. 125 calls to start the week is something that you can look out for the price target at 128. I did see some 130 calls, 135 calls, 136 calls being picked up on Nvidia last Friday. So into this week's expiry, which is kind of very bullish. But we'll have to see. There's a lot of hype around when Jensen talks. So um, probably are playing for that as well. So keep an eye out for that on Nvidia. Next one is Snow. This is an interesting chart too. Once that 155, 156.50 breaks, you can play some 160 calls here on Snow with 160, 150 and 167.50 are your two targets to the upside. So keep an eye out for that on Snow. I'll be looking out to play this to the upside here when that 156.50 kind of breaks. Next one is actually, where's Oracle? Oh, there you go. So Oracle, once that 151 breaks, I'll probably play some 155 calls again on Oracle. There's a lot of news around um, uh, some investment for like someone taking investment into TikTok, and Oracle is being the front contender for this particular event. So I mean, Oracle, the dip, if you all remember this dips that Oracle has had, uh, it's mostly because of TikTok ban. And why TikTok is so important for Oracle is because TikTok uses their databases, the cloud databases. So that is why it's very important for Oracle. And once that 151 breaks, I'll probably play some 155 calls as well here. So keep an eye out for that on Oracle here. Next one is the last but not the least. We have Tesla. Um, Actually, no, I have trade idea for the week still. So I have Tesla here. I can't say if this bottomed yet. I don't know. And this upper trend line is something that you'll have to look out for. It's looking like uh, it needs that around 300 plus. Uh, 300 plus is pretty gettable. Our average on shares is 313. So once it comes closer to like 270, 280 is when I'll probably sell some CSPs. Right now, just stay put. Don't play TSLL. Don't play options on Tesla. Just stay out of it. When I say options, don't play leaps. Just stay out of it. Keep your shares. Hold on to them. Price target is 600. So that's mostly what I'll tell you about Tesla. I don't have to worry about any decay at all. So keep an eye out for that on Tesla. Last but not the least, I'll talk about the trade idea for this week is XOM. Once that 112 breaks, you can probably play some 113 calls or 114 calls here on XOM with the price target at 114.50 and upper price target at 117. Obviously, macro news is something that is very important for these oil stocks as well. Keep an eye out for that. We'll also keep an eye out for the flow. Once that 120, 112 breaks and closes above, we'll be probably playing some calls towards the upside here on XOM. But anyway, like always, if you have any other questions, do let me know. I will be available on chat and I will go over those charts as well. Otherwise, have a good rest of your weekend. I will be seeing you all again with our pre-market notes tomorrow, and I'll also be on voice call tomorrow, and we'll probably try to snipe out some NDX and SPX